Welcome to People Analytics Podcast. I am your host, Lindsay Patton, and on this episode, I have Linda White with me, an expert at HR and talent, just making sure the talent has what they need to be successful. Welcome, Linda, and could you give a little bit of an introduction about, why we're so excited to have you here?
Yes, thank you very much. I've been in HR for almost 25 years now, and I have a diverse background. I've been with nonprofits, commercial, federal contracting. Through my experience, had a lot of experience with employee relations and why HR teams work, why they don't, what's impacting them. So today we're obviously going to be talking about that kind of from that perspective and what I see happening in different departments and different companies.
So, 25 years experience, you have definitely seen some evolution across HR as well as, some repetition. So what do you think, the future of HR looks like based on some trends that you've seen in your career?
A lot of places now are making sure that they have some technology in place, but what they are also trying to figure out is how good their technology is. Is it expanding with the growth of an organization? So I really feel technology is going to be very important, as well as with everything going on, the kind of experience that employees have and candidates have as well. So that's really driving a lot nowadays.
Mm-hmm. And that's been core of your career. So can you kind of tell me what is it that employees want? What is unwavering in terms of, across the past 25 years that are just essential to having, a good work experience for an employee?
I think workers, and I have to include myself, they're looking for an organization that they feel engaged with, that they feel aligns with what they believe. For the most part, because there's not going to always be a total alliance, but they want to be able to do work that's meaningful to them, that they feel a lot of accomplishment. And even if you're on a contract and not actually in with at your company's headquarters, there's still ways to make them feel included, engaged, and motivated. And that starts at the very beginning when you're recruiting somebody. You want to make sure that technology-wise, they find it very easy to apply, that it's seamless, that that the recruiter they just never hear from them. So that's an issue. And they also want to make sure that their interviews, they're not going on a million interviews. They want one or two is great, possibly a third if very much, if you're in a leadership position. Mm-hmm. Then they want to make sure that the onboarding experience is good, not all over the place, filling out this form, filling out that form. One-stop shop is really fantastic to have. It's just making the overall experience. What you want is to make someone feel welcome, that they made the right choice to join your organization, and that they feel like they made the right decision.
Right.
It comes down to the manager. So are your managers trained to deal with a newcomer? Are they training them correctly? Are they helping them to fit in? Are they touching base with them enough? Are they also, what kind of meetings are they having with their people? And are they also developing them? So these are all the things that are so crucial that a lot of organizations either don't plan to have because it may be monetarily, it's not something they can do, or they're not interested. I think you're going to see a big change in that now, as you already are, and going forward.
And I like how you mentioned culture, because with StaffGeek, it really comes down to culture and knowing your culture and making sure that is uniform across the organization. So can you talk a little bit on the power of culture and understanding it?
Yeah, absolutely. When I got into a leadership position, I always wanted to have a department that made sure that the employees felt they could come to HR, that it wasn't the evil place to come to, that they knew that unless there was some things they were bringing up that couldn't be confidential, that they could discuss their problems. That's a great start with your department. But if leadership isn't doing the same thing or sending out messages that make an employee feel motivated, engaged, and they understand where the company's going, then you're going to lose that whole thing. It doesn't matter what like I do or meet their needs. If leadership doesn't, it's a done deal. It's not going to happen. So I think it's definitely important to find out where your leadership is going. That's the start of your culture. What they push down, how they message things, that is it right there. Are they collaborative? Are they making sure people are accountable? Are they are they transparent? Are they transparent with merit increases, bonuses? That's what people want nowadays. And that's what they want to hear. A whole generation coming in who are looking for things that other generations have not looked for before. It was just, I have a job, I'm moving up the ladder, I'm getting more pay, but it's changed. And I believe, I've always been one to hit on culture because you're there at least 8 hours a day, or you're engaged at work, even if you're at home 8 hours a day. So you want to make sure this is something that you believe in and that you feel motivated to do.
I'd love for you to expand on how things have changed. We talked about those constants that are just, what every employee wants. But could you expand on, those things that have changed?
Sure. Obviously, in the last year of the pandemic, people that their work can be done differently. But then again, that could come with other stressors, parents who are having to make sure their kids can get on their laptops to handle school. And then they're really the ones who are being the quote unquote babysitters of their children, make sure they're sitting there while trying to do their job. That's crazy. That's hard. Also with what's happened with George Floyd, starting out where we want to make sure that everybody feels included, everyone's treated the same. And that's only, if you're a very smart leader, you realize having as much diversity as possible and not having just yes people around you is really the best way to have a wonderful culture, because you're opening up everything to discussion. And then people really feel like, okay, maybe people didn't agree with me, but at least I got to voice my views. And that's really what maybe 9/10 of it is.
Yeah, as a leader myself, I really appreciate subordinates that encourage me to grow in a respectful way, because it's possible. It's in leadership, I feel like there's a lot of, no, it's my way or the highway, but you can be encouraged by, people who are younger than you in the workplace, and they can have a big effect on that. And I feel like a lot of people, as Gen Z is entering the workplace, they are challenging a lot of that. As you said, people have expectations behind organizations now based on their,
Right.
morals and beliefs.
Right. Absolutely.
So how do you navigate that in HR as well?
I think it's important to get into an organization where your views align as much as possible, that you can see where your leadership is already, they're being transparent. If they need coaching and they're open to that, then that's a good way to provide it. I think it's important to trying to get a pulse on your employees. So when I'm in an organization that allows me to go visit employees who are not in headquarters, but they're out and about, I've learned so much just from going to see people and talking to them about their jobs, things I normally get. So I'm on their turf. And that I think is important too, because then they can tell you what they're not happy with. They feel closer to seeing you in person sometimes. So I think that's also a very important thing. And it also, at the same time, if you are going to a site that's not at headquarters, what you're also doing is you're making them feel more aligned to the headquarters building. So they don't feel alone. They know who they can reach out to. And I think it's also important that if somebody reaches out to you to answer within 24 hours, so because then they see that they're not having to contact you repeatedly. They feel that someone's actually interested in what's happening to them. Communication, just sending things out here and there, maybe like on what the company's doing, so that they're hearing from the company. They're hearing different, what's going on. It could be about anything. It could be just, open enrollment's coming up, or we're doing this contest, or we just had a win on a contract. It just keeps people engaged. And also, I think taking surveys isn't a bad thing. The only problem with a survey is if you're not willing to act on certain things in a survey, then you shouldn't do it, because then nobody will fill out these surveys. But if you want to get an understanding, like better benefits they want, or how they feel the climate is, it's always good to listen to that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, that's what I love about, your ethos is, you mentioned talking to people directly. You can look at data all day, but, there's that human aspect of actually going on the site and, asking people, hey, how are you enjoying this? Or what are your pain points?
Right.
So can you talk about how you've built your career to be, have that be so human driven?
Mm-hmm. There's been times when I haven't been in HR, and I saw how some HR departments were run. And I also have been involved in ones that weren't run great. And I always thought, I'm going to be the kind of person who makes sure that they feel that they, as I said before, that they can come to HR and that they're respected. Mm-hmm. So that's how that really came about. I wanted to treat others as I was treated. Now, how I handle my direct staff is I have one-on-one meetings, and that came about through another manager. She had one-on-ones, and it was a time to talk about it could be work, it could be personal, it could be both. And it wasn't like this, it was like maybe 15, 20 minutes, but we had it once a week. And I really felt close to her. I felt like I could talk to her about things. I felt she actually had an interest in me and my career. And that really, it's always resonated with me. So I made sure I did that with all my direct reports. And we talk about anything they want to talk about. And it's been
cool.
Yeah, I think it because then you're getting somebody who's actually interested. It also helps to offset any issues that you might have. So if you are seeing some issues, then you can talk before it becomes too awkward, which is something I also believe with employer relations, when people think, it's too confrontational. Well, it doesn't have to be. You should get on top of things quickly, because the longer that you don't say something to somebody, that's when it becomes awkward. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, it was fine for like 6 months, and now all of a sudden you're saying something. And they're right. It should have been brought to their attention sooner. So go ahead. Oh, no. So that's why these one-on-ones can help in that situation. But that's usually with my direct staff.
I love how they have autonomy over it as well, and how they get to, have some control over the topics. How have you seen, positive reactions as a result of giving autonomy over a portion of those meetings?
Well, they've really enjoyed being able to bring up anything, so that sometimes they'll be about work, and that's when I'll try saying, so what do you recommend? You think we should do? Because my goal is to develop somebody, and I want them to be able to start thinking along those lines. Like, I want them to start thinking, okay, here's the issue I'm seeing, but here's a solution possibly that we could have. And I want them to start thinking along that way, so that they're really developing themselves. We've talked about getting certifications, the pluses and the minuses on doing that, and how it could help their career. We talk about, I'm also open about telling someone if I think they should look for another job.
Really?
I do believe that. It's in fact, I had one with somebody who I just loved, didn't ever want her to leave, but I knew I didn't have an opening for her. So I always encouraged her, and she did leave, and it was sad for me, but it was so important.
Yeah.
She move up, because I think, yes, I'm their boss, their manager, but if I'm really truly involved in their development, then sometimes that's what it means, is pushing them to move up.
That's really awesome. It really is to hear that, because it views them as a whole person. It takes in consideration, their lives and goals outside of the organization, and it's a very holistic view. And I really love that.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think I want that from somebody, manager. And I think you probably would say the same thing. You just want to know that they're really looking out for you, and that if there are any issues, that they're telling you straight up so that you can fix things, and that it's a really wonderful experience coming to work, not this horrible thing where you're having so much anxiety that you never want to go to work.
Right. And another thing you said that I really loved was how you asked them, well, what do you recommend instead? Because a lot of management people think it's just delegation. You have to do this. You have to do what I say. And good managers, it's collaboration. And that is a great example of collaboration. You have an idea of, your own experience, how you think this should be solved, but it takes an extra step to, get that, employee to think about, critical think. And so that leads to growth. And I love that as well.
Exactly. It's your critical thinking skills. And when you see them so excited that you listen to them, or that they actually had an idea that we use, they're so excited. You just feel like, well, this is why I come to work.
Yeah.
This is what's wonderful.
Yeah. So what other examples of, I guess, ways that you can recognize your employees and make them feel special that, isn't necessarily, doing too much, because it can be really simple to just say, hey, you're doing a good job. What are some ways that managers can really do that for their employees?
I do think being very upfront about when you really, like, I had a person working for me. She was a business partner, but she was actually, I'll be honest with you, she could have done my job. And I just told her straight up that I thought she was great. And I thought she was really good at what she did. And so she got a lot of validation from me that made her excited as well. And we worked on projects together, and it was just wonderful to be able to do that with somebody who you had such high respect for. So that's one thing I've done. When they have personal issues or something, letting, if they couldn't come in to work, then just saying, don't worry about it, we'll pick up for you. Things like that, so they feel like they're not concerned about that. So if I'm allowed to do that and it can work within the department, then I want to be able to do that, because everyone's going to go through some hard times. So these are kind of the ways that you can do. I've seen other things, taking people out to, a lunch or dinner. And those are things too, but I think you really want to hit more on a personal note where people feel like, oh, I am definitely at a great place.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And also the golden rule that you mentioned too. Yeah. I feel like a big problem, in HR, and a lot of workers are afraid to go to HR, is that they with very valid experiences, they view HR as helping the organization over the people. And so, for people who have burned, myself included in the past, how do you kind of build that trust that, you do care?
It is building trust. It is, sometimes it's other people telling other people, oh, I went and talked to Linda and this is what she said, and it was great, and we worked together. So sometimes it's like, the reputation gets out where they know they can come and they tell others. I have had quite a few people tell me that, like, say I've replaced somebody in HR, they'll come in and say, I couldn't talk to this person, or they told my supervisor things I couldn't, so I don't know, are you going to do that? And it's heartbreaking. It's like, this is awful. This is awful that they've had these experiences. I've had to build trust with people who were very leery, and then I've seen them turn around and open up so that we could actually get to the heart of any issues. I've also helped them deal with their managers. So if they've had like, I can't communicate with my manager's doing this, and we talk about ways on how they can communicate back to their managers. Not always successful, but sometimes it has been. That, yeah, I'd say for the most part, it's been trust.
Yeah. And I can definitely see that. It's a tricky field to wade through. You're being pulled in different directions. So how do you, as an HR professional, be an advocate for the employees, while also, making sure the organization is happy as well?
So I always will bring that up. I'll say I'm wearing two hats. I have an organizational hat and I have the hat that can also listen to you. But there could be that I cannot always be, I might not be agreeing with you because of the organization as a whole. So I'm pretty upfront about that. And it can be tricky. But at the end of the day, I do know I have to represent the organization. So that could supersede some issues. But as long as I'm being transparent, they're going to get, they'll feel like I'm being honest with them.
Oh yeah. Transparency is key, knowing those lines of like, okay, what can I do for you? And here's where I really can't help you in the way that you want me to is,
right.
It really helps, navigate the organization better for the employee as well.
Right. Exactly. So I've had a lot of success with that too. And I'll always be open to like, if you're coming to report like sexual harassment or harassment of any kind, those things cannot be confidential. I would have to do an investigation, but anything else, most likely we can keep confidential. Pretty upfront about those too.
Yeah. So we spent some time.
No, I'm sorry. I interrupted.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about, some exciting things and positive things. We kind of took a little moment to talk about, some of HR pain points. But what kind of hopefulness are you seeing as trends are emerging?
I am very hopeful about people having the mindset of I'm no longer interested in being treated badly. I want an organization that is going to be treating everyone well. And I think it's really, I think it could possibly turn around. Or I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it just on social media, I've had peers leave companies as well. They've been treated badly and then they're just moving on to the next thing. And I think I'm hoping that companies will be more open to the social issues and recognizing that culture is so important that it's not always, I understand it is the bottom line, but being open and creating a good culture is part of your bottom line. And I think that's what they need to understand as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Linda. I think I am all out of questions for you. Do you have anything else that you would like to add or think that I missed in the conversation?
No, I think you got everything.
Yay. Well, how can people reach out to you? What's the best way for them to contact if they have any questions?
I can give my email. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Do you mind sharing?
No, it's L as in Linda, M as in Mary, White, 26 @gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you again. I am so inspired by, professionals like you in the workplace who are working to, create environments that people want to be in. So thank you again for being a guest on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And again, I'm Lindsay Patton, host of the People Analytics podcast, and I'm always looking for guests like Linda who are people first. And so you can reach out to me, Lindsay, LINDSAY @StaffGeek.com. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to StaffGeek's People Analytics podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Patton, and I'm always looking to interview leaders who put people first. If you or someone you know lead with a people-first mindset, please email me at lindsay@staffgeek.com. That's LINDSAY @staffgeek.com. If you want to take things a step deeper and understand your organization's true culture DNA, I encourage you to take StaffGeek's free culture assessment. Just head to staffgeek.com and click the button that says Free Culture Assessment. Thanks again for listening.